Hey everyone, I'm Melissa Whitmer, the creator of the Ultimate Athlete Project. I just want to create a short little video to share with you some of the things that I've been thinking about as I've been creating the body weight phase for the Ultimate Athlete Project. This is also a short presentation that I did for Triangle Ultimate, just for educational purposes. So yeah, anyway, we'll just get started. This it's just pretty short, just sharing a few ideas. Right, so now I have to share my screen. Okay, let's do that and that. Okay. All right. So maybe I should go back to the beginning. Okay, so here we are. We are training in a pandemic. So what do we want to think about? Here's what I want to talk about. We're going to talk about the mental side of training right now. That's really important. We want to talk about the injury risks, potential injury risks of returning to play after a significant time in lockdown. We are going to talk about making a body weight program that's ultimate specific, some of the special considerations, and we'll address maybe some possibilities about returning to play. Okay, so I want to start with why this really matters, because I think in this time, especially as lockdown may drag on for a while, it may be easy to be disconnected from why training for Ultimate would be important, especially if tournaments get canceled or even seasons gets canceled. It's easy to think about why, why does this even matter? Might seem trivial in light of everything that's happening outside. So the way that I've been thinking about this a lot is that even if there is no Ultimate this season, well, we will play eventually, number one, and we want to be ready for when that happens. And then kind of along with that is the mental health aspect of training for Ultimate. So there's obviously the physical health of continuing training in some way, shape, or form that's going to be really tied to mental health. We know that's true all of the time. I also think that having a training program is about having a routine, and we know that routines are going to be important, especially in this sort of lockdown situation. It's very easy for one day to blend into the next, easy to sort of lose track of time, and easy to get bored, or just, so routines are an important part of also, I think, mental health. And so along with that, so routines I'm talking about during the day, and then I think also in terms of the longer time frame, just marking time and making progress. Again, it's easy for 1 week to blend into the next. So if we're on a program, we're able to notice some changes throughout over the weeks as we make progress in our training. Maybe we're able to do things we couldn't do before. And I think this will also be an important part of just overall mental health. And that's important, because if you're able to take care of yourself and stay in a mentally stable and positive place, then you'll be able to take care of others. I imagine that moods are going to be fluctuating. Some people are going to be dealing with personal losses, and everyone has their own private struggles during this time of social distancing, etc. So, and because this is kind of like a universal situation, it's not like some people aren't experiencing it and are able to better support others. We're all in this together, so we all need to take care of ourselves and then take care of others as we can. And so it's each person's sort of battle to do that. And I think that we do have to fight to do that every single day, because well, sometimes it's going to feel easy, sometimes it's going to be hard, sometimes we're going to be on the receiving end needing some support, and sometimes we're going to be on the giving end of giving support to others. So yeah, I view this as a responsibility to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. And then along with that is this idea of staying connected. So Frisbee may seem like low priority right now, but again, when we think about supporting our own mental health and that of our taking care of others, we want to stay connected. We want to stay connected to the interests that we have and we want to stay connected to the people that matter to us. And for a lot of us, that does really revolve around the Ultimate community. So you're staying connected physically to yourself and staying connected mentally to the things and people that you care about. And that's why I think training for Ultimate matters a lot during this time. So, yeah, this is why we're putting together tools in place to help you do that. Okay, so if you're having trouble sticking with the training plan, there's kind of two big barriers I see. One is logistics. So this talk is also, I hope, helpful for any captains and coaches out there. Two main things: logistics, meaning you can't access equipment, your training environment has changed, you can't access your training partners, maybe that was a big help to you in training. So your routines have changed, all this stuff has changed. And so it's it's like kind of a decision point, like, well, are you gonna let that get in the way of your training, or are you going to figure it out? So I think it's just important to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge it kind of sucks. And then start by making a new plan. And a plan that's going to work with your available resources. So in the Ultimate Athlete Project, we address this by creating a complete bodyweight program that requires no equipment, and that can be done in the space the size of a yoga mat. So it was important to us to take on the most strict lockdown conditions and the very minimal things, so that everybody can do it. It was also important for us to do that because that's the situation I'm in. I'm in a studio apartment with no training equipment, and so if I can do this, I think that everyone else at least has a chance of being able to do it as well. Okay, now I think the other barrier is motivation. We talked about this a bit. Seasons and practices are canceled, so it's just hard to be motivated to continue working towards something when you're not sure when that something is, and it may feel some days a very long way off. So I encourage you, and if you're a coach, help your players to do this, to tap into some other larger, more universal motivators during this time. So I think there's a book called Purpose, and it talks about three main motivators: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So I often think about these when I'm thinking about motivation. I think there's a fourth one there that was not covered, which is connection. So I think these are just some universal things that motivate humans. Autonomy may not be an important one during this time because we're all a little bit maybe too autonomous, but we can tap into some other things like mastery, purpose, and connection. So whether you're using strictly just the UAP workouts or helping others who are not in the UAP, you can tap into mastery. So can you find some movements or some things you couldn't do before that you can work on? So one way to do this is to take on maybe like learning how to do a handstand, or just learning how to do some new movements, new exercises, learning how to do body weight training. So it's this idea that humans are motivated by getting better at something. So can we find something that we can work on and get better at so that we can feel that sense of mastery? That's very motivating during this time. Second one is purpose. So I think that's why I talked so much about this mental health side, this taking care of yourself so you can take care of others. There's a purpose to your training. It goes beyond just getting ready for Frisbee. There's a purpose that matters, but there's a purpose that matters in the here and now, which is taking care of yourself, taking care of others. And then along with that, connection. So having a connection is a really big motivator. That's why training partners are so crucial for some folks. So if you're a person who needs a training partner, having someone there waiting for you at the gym is an important part of your motivation. Let's think about ways that we can do that virtually. Obviously, we can do Zoom calls or Facebook Lives or FaceTime a friend. You can still set up appointments with a training partner even if you're not in the same location. So if you know that's a motivating factor for you, then just do that, even if it seems a bit awkward at first. It's at least having someone on camera that's training beside you, even if you're not looking at them. Having an appointment is really the thing that matters. Being able to chat about your workouts afterwards might be the thing that matters. So think about ways that you can create that feeling of connection with your training. Other things you can do are take on challenges together if you're organizing a team. So I think that Black Widows was doing some sort of push-up challenge. So those are some kind of things that you can think about. And I think now's the time to be creative in all of this stuff. So what can you do that's going to help support you and support others during this time? What are some ways that you can be creative in a virtual environment? Okay, let's talk a little bit about specifics about training for Ultimate in lockdown versus, well, just a regular body weight program. So, so to be honest, body weight training is not my favorite thing to do. So I prefer going to the gym as well. So I've done a lot of research in the past couple of weeks about body weight training, and I'm just looking for stuff to do. So some of the things I've noticed in a lot of body weight training philosophy is that it's well, some of the challenges we've come up against are there's some potential imbalances that can happen in body weight training. So a lot of body weight exercises are based on push-ups, lunges, body weight squats, and so you can sort of be missing some things there. So for instance, lunges and body weight squats, these are very quad dominant, very front of the body dominant. And then the back of the body is a little bit harder to train with just body weight exercises. So some of the things we want to think about as a field sport is hamstring and the specificity of how a hamstring functions in a field sport in sprinting. And so that's one of the things that can be missing from typical bodyweight programs. We're going to be experiencing a lack of unstable surfaces in lockdown, especially if we're indoors and not able to get outside. We're at risk of sort of losing some coordination in our core. We're talking about rotational movements. Those are often absent in typical bodyweight programs. And I think just another thing that we're going to be dealing with is a loss of work capacity due to just increase in sedentary behavior that's going to be really challenging to avoid, I think, for many people. Okay, so I think I kind of covered this in the last slide. Okay, yeah, we've got quad dominant exercises, a lot of emphasis on push-ups. Pulling exercises are more difficult to find. Often bodyweight programs have a lack of single leg power movements, and in general just aren't designed for sport sport preparation. They're more designed for general fitness, or often they are designed around the idea of learning how to do certain gymnastic movements or handstands or things like that. Okay, so let's talk about the hamstring a little bit. So in the bodyweight phase of the Ultimate Athlete Project, we put quite a few kicking exercises in our conditioning, and this is because we want to be maintaining that coordination and also training effect of this eccentric contraction of the hamstring. So the function that we're trying to replicate here is the deceleration of the leg in the sprint cycle. So kicking exercises are important for that, so make sure you're not skipping those. And then also just getting that posterior chain cueing of the hamstring is a little bit more challenging in bodyweight exercises because a lunge doesn't really do that. So this is why we have things like sprinter starts and the karate kick exercises in there quite a bit. For your feet, there's going to be a lack of stimulus for your feet. So especially if you are not able to get outside. So we're spending time indoors on flat surfaces. Our feet aren't in cleats. We're going to have to think about how we're going to transition our feet to this environment, to being in cleats on grass and doing a lot of stuff. So we want to spend regular time on foot strength and awareness. And so this is something that we're incorporating into our warm-ups. If you are able to go outside for walks, I encourage you to seek out unstable surfaces when you can. Okay, another thing is motor control. So we're not going to forget how to throw a Frisbee, but if we're not using our core in a sort of rotational way or in a powerful rotational way, then we are going to lose a little bit of just like coordination and control. So so we've added a sort of throwing workout as a extra SAQ workout. And this is just so we can maintain that motor control And then also gives us an opportunity to work in more visualization into our training. So if we have some physical components that mimic what we're doing on the field, it's also an opportunity to work on visualizing certain throws we'd like to work on. So I'd encourage you to do that. I'd encourage you to work on that and think about. So visualization is really powerful, but I think it's just amplified if we can do some physical movements that mimic our visualization as well. Okay, and I think just a bit of this will be better than nothing. I think if you spend a whole month and don't do any of it, you're going to be maybe having more problems than someone who at least does something like this every other week. Okay, so also when you think about the core, now is a really good time for general core strength work because you can do it anywhere. It's easy to do, and you almost can't do too much of it. So if you need something to focus on, you can focus on that. Okay, now as we think about going from lockdown situation to going out to play again, I think there's going to be some challenges because we're all going to be super excited to go out again. And I think there's a really big risk of going from much more sedentary behavior to suddenly going out and wanting to play a lot and playing a lot. I think it's going to be really tough for people to do that in a healthy way that doesn't cause injury. But the last thing that we want is for people to get outside, go out and play, whether it's pickup or a game or whatever, and then be injured and then not be able to play for a couple weeks, after having spent all this time in lockdown, not being able to play. That's the last thing we want. So I'm not exactly sure how we're going to prevent this sort of natural desire to play a lot as soon as we can. But I think it's time to start thinking about it. We're going to need to take it slow when we're able to go out and play again. We've got all these issues. Our feet are going to be a little bit like not quite ready, and we might have some detraining effects. Just might not have as much work capacity because we're just not even walking as much. We're not moving as much. As we do in our normal daily lives. So I think there will be some detraining effects due to that. It's sort of hard to understand. I mean, lockdown is not something most of us have dealt with before. So I think we just want to think about that. And I think I just want to make you aware of it starting now. And we'll see how it goes. But I just want you to know that there is going to be a bit of an increased risk as you go back to playing. But we can mitigate that risk, and we're mitigating that risk as much as possible with our body weight training and with some of the exercises we're putting in there. And we'll add other things to it as we sort of think about them, and we might try to have a specific sort of return to play program when it becomes clear that we may be going outside soon. I don't know, this is all still very new to us as it is new to you. So just know these are some things that are on our minds that we're working on. So hope that's been helpful to you. And yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know if you have any questions.